All right, so with our handsome Mr. Teddy, you ready, sir? So I wanted to dive into a little bit, ready? He's like, but I got to check out all this cool stuff. Nice check-in, sir. So there's a lot of misconceptions around muzzle training. So muzzles, for example, are another great tool to have your pup or adult dog or teenage dog practice getting comfortable wearing. So I'm not saying that everybody under the sun needs to have a muzzle on their puppy or their dog, but remember that if the one time your pup has to wear a muzzle is when there's going to be something really stressful, overwhelming, or painful happening, then the muzzle is one more moment where they lose autonomy, control, and they feel even more overwhelmed and helpless. So muzzles then can start to turn into a very bad and negative association where the muzzle then becomes the precursor to something really bad about to happen. So the many benefits to muzzle training are that your puppy feels comfortable wearing one even well before they ever would need one in a stressful situation. So, for example, all of my dogs are also muzzle trained. I want them to feel comfortable wearing a muzzle and not have it always equal, here comes something overwhelming like going to the vet's office. So, for example, with one of my boys, Bill, he is very flustered by new people coming into his space and having to touch him. If you're not in his inner circle, stranger danger is a real thing for him. So just like with us, how comfortable would you feel if someone said, just relax as they started to touch you? And especially if you have no say in the scenario, it's not going to feel good. What is it? Spooky noise? There's the big train going by. So remember too, and I think he's just coming for some lovies, which is great, you handsome monkey, is there can be moments where scary things like a novel noise could spook your puppy. You cannot reinforce fear. So if he is scared and he looks to you for comfort and support, he's going and relaxing in the puddle that they've all made with spilling the water dish. I won't name any names. The labs enjoy making puddles. So with Mr. T, if, for example, he's nervous and you've been told don't give him attention when he's scared, that's like me saying, oh, my little human daughter fell down and she hurt herself. And I told her, you're fine, shut up, get over it, get up. Trauma for later. So if, for example, I went over and said, oh my gosh, are you okay? Come snuggle with mama. Would you like a hug? I'm not reinforcing her falling and hurting herself or for crying. I'm trying to make her feel safe again. So ready, Teddy, come. He's like, oh, you're pooped out. All of the babes did a lot of good wrestling today, and I think they're exhausted. Ready? So if, let's say I don't get him, I did call him, I might do, ready, a little find it, get him up and wiggling. What do you think? He's like, I am so tired. Are you a handsome man? Ready? You want to try some? Are you so exhausted? Sorry, I'm out of camera shot. Ready? You want to do some big find its? Good job. So obviously towards the middle of the day, they do tend to crash and burn slightly. Ready? So he's gonna go do some find its. The poor guys and gals. It's hard being a teenager, or technically he's only 4.5 months or so, and he's already 70 pounds. Ready? So if you find your puppy's also slowing at times, like he's gonna be a big boy because he's, well, we're guessing, Great Pyrenees, German Shepherd, and he's also got, I think you said, oh, St. Bernard. So he really likes the cool puddle because he says, guys, it's way too hot in here with my heated attire of his lovely, furry coat. So ready? Teddy. He says, I'm pooped out, lady. Let's see if we can practice a little bit. He says, I don't know. Ready? We'll do some more find its. Maybe what I'll do is I'm going to bring over the cot for him if he wants to relax. Ready? Sorry for being all over the place today with my camera. Ready? Here, we'll put our little bed over here so we can get cozy. How's that? He's like, yes, please. There we go. Now you can lay down on your bed and that'll make you feel much better. Nice. So if your puppy, as I was mentioning, is sometimes slowing down, it can be very much so because he is going through some pretty big growth spurts. He probably has gained like 40 pounds or more in like 2 weeks or something like that, obscene. So he's almost going to be outgrowing these smaller cots and we'll have to use only the big ones soon. So for Mr. T over here, again, back to like the muzzle training. is if muzzles are only paired with bad things, then muzzles will be one more element to, let's say, vet visits that could become very troublesome from his perspective. For some dogs, remember the vet visits, I get that we want to make sure our puppies are up to date with things, that they're safe and they have what they need. But sometimes how we deal with them in those situations will either make each vet visit easier or each vet visit harder. So if you've been finding that your babe is getting more and more and more flustered, there are different veterinary options. So there are some that are certified fear-free, which means that they are going to go at the rate that your dog or cat may need to be successful. They also typically have happy visits, which involve, most of them are free from what I've seen for most of these clinics. And you would schedule an appointment. You're already one of their clients. And you would make happy visits happen where you set up, you call when you're there, they have you come in when it's your turn, there's nobody in the entrance area, you go right to your own little section into your room, and you just hang out there for 10-15 minutes with the pheromones in the room to help your pup or your cat calm down and relax. And then from there, they have a vet tech come in, chat for a little bit, maybe do a few easy find its or easy peasy things, and then call it a day. So the benefit of doing happy visits is that not every time you go to the vet does it feel uncomfortable, does it always have a procedure, it doesn't always equal being handled and sort of forced through things. So, and this is where cooperative care is going to be so crucial. Huh, you handsome boy. He's like, oh, so tired. Good job. So right now we're just feeding for him being relaxed and placing here. So for muzzle brands, there's a whole bunch. So I'm not saying anybody has to go and do this, but remember the benefit of being proactive in your puppy's comfort with different things means that you're less likely to have it be negative for when you do need it. He's like, back to my wet corner. Teddy. He's maybe wants some water on the other side. Actually, there's some funny noises. He's a little bit unsure. I think he actually just now spotted. I have my bowls are on my fence drying, and sometimes they look a little bit funny because just the very tips of them are showing. He's like, guys, I don't know how I feel about it. Ready? Oh my goodness, they are a little bit spooky. Good job, ready? He's like, guys, not sure. So I know we're kind of blabbing on a couple different things right now. So with Mr. T, you'll see he's a bit concerned. So ready? So this is where that lovely moment where your puppy may start to notice things in the environment. I know Miss R did this a few weeks back. She had heard a big truck and saw it in the window. Ready, Teddy? Nice job. So remember, what I'm doing is I'm reinforcing the disconnect and the redirection into some find its. There's going to be moments where when he goes into more adolescent versus baby, he's going to then have more of his genetics poke out. So that might be where at times the Great Pyrenees and the St. Bernard might come out as well. So remember that guardian breeds like the Great Pyrenees are going to let you know when something novel might be appearing because that could be dangerous. So, and they might feel that it's their need to go investigate and then either decide on their own, should we make it leave or should we let it stay? So this is where we want to still be very proactive in his setup. So he's not being able to rehearse the things maybe we don't want him to get really good at for down the road. So I'm going to see before I lose this handsome man to the environment again. So I have a few items. So we have his leash, for example. So a leash could be a great way to start practicing this concept. This could also be very similar to helping your puppy get comfortable putting on a harness. So I once saw this other really awesome trainer where her dog was flustered by the harness. So what she ended up doing was having a bigger piece of something. So like, for example, like something much wider than the opening was and have the pup practice putting their head through that. So that way there'd be no contact with the actual material, but the putting head through the opening was able to happen in practice. So I've shown this method a few times to a few other students is you can take the handle to your leash and you can practice having this be something your dog boops. So if let's say right there, yes. Also, I know we had slightly discussed for the handsome guy doing a bit with a head collar. I am not saying anybody has to. Yes, do a head collar. I prefer most of the time for dogs to stay in a body harness so they're not going to hurt their neck or their trachea or vital organs in that area. But also, if you were to ever, do a head collar, there are some brands that I find are better than others. I really don't like the Gentle Leader. It's really snug around the dog's muzzle. It's very uncomfortable. Two safety points is if your dog doesn't know how to work on loose leash walking on a flat collar, or for example, typically I prefer the body harness, then slapping on a head collar is not going to resolve your problems. So a lot of times we as people are always looking for the next thing to stop the thing we don't like without putting in the effort on our end, not in a mean way, but without putting in the effort or the time to show the puppy what it does mean to do loose leash walking. So like right now, he's like, it's tucking his jowl. I'm just making it fun to boop his nose through the opening of his leash. Sorry. It's always embarrassing when your snack falls out of your face. Excuse me. So again, right here, yes. What a smart man. So if this was already too big of a step and he was nervous, I would not be forcing the muzzle or the thing towards him. I hold it off to the side and I see if he can comfortably put his nose towards it. This could even start off with just booping it. So maybe he would poop, like he's like, no, I want to keep booping. But you could have it where he would boop even just the leash itself or the thing. Because then if, let's say that's going really well, putting his nose through something, you could use a cone, a bucket. Oh my gosh, chew them, sir. You could use anything like a bigger solo cup or a big coffee recyclable cup like you might get from Dunkin's. So what you could do is, again, you'd offer, he boops his little nose near it, yes, and you feed. So you could, again, call this muzzle, you could, whatever you'd like it to be, and you would just start practicing, nice, having him put his nose in or towards it. There are some muzzle brands that I like much better than others. Just like I was mentioning, a head collar for some, yes, could be a potential for a very large dog. So I know that you guys have been doing a wonderful job with the body harness, but as Mr. T sometimes becomes a little bit bigger, we still would want to work under his threshold and where he's comfortable. He's like, maybe. But we don't want to go ahead and force him right into a head collar. He's like, lady, I hear those funny noises. So when the train goes by, he's a little bit unsure. I might only do this a few reps and then call it a day. So I wouldn't do it so long that your puppy's like, oh my gosh, leave me alone, and they like want to walk away. So when applying, let's say, some muzzle practice, you could start as simple as working with the leash and have him putting his little nose through. So with the head collars, for example, I much prefer a Halti brand or something similar. I think there's another knockoff brand like Walk and Train. But remember, you still have to get your dog very much so comfortable with the concept of a head collar. It is, from the dog's perspective, sometimes a lot more adversive. So if your babe is not slowly conditioned to it, they may still really not do well. So, but for some of my gigantic dog clients who are sometimes very strong, they have been helpful for some of those situations. And I think it's the lesser of the other evils out there, where we're not adding pain to the setup, but instead trying to help redirect by, if you have, almost like with a horse, if you have control over the head, you have more control as to where the body might go. So that could be where a head collar could be a nice option for this giant boy as he gets only bigger and bigger. But there's plenty of babes that can rock lovely loose leash walking with a body harness or no gear. So it is one of those things we want to make sure we're still educating as we're going through different developmental stages. I know it's hard. So that way he can keep mastering the level at which we'd like him to be at, but with him being part of the process. So if, let's say, for example, the cone was a little bit weird for him, you could go back to just using your leash and use the handle and help him sort of lure him in towards the little handle loop, and then try a little bit with that muzzle training. But there are some awesome resources that you guys did get from the puppy classes and some of the others where it does go into the benefits of muzzle training, how not to use a muzzle. And typically some of my favorite muzzle brands are Big Snoof Dog Gear and then also Mia's Muzzles. There are some brands out there that are cheaper, but they do not have ample pant room, or the ability to really eat and drink comfortably. So you'd really want to see a muzzle that does not restrict those options. So there are some that are bite proof and some that are not. So if you're ever unsure or you're not really unaware of what is available out there, you can always check in. But this would still be great practice for if he were, embarrassing again, fell right out of his face. If you were starting to build in to eventually trying a head collar. So, but remember, head collars, just like with the service dogs, they don't just slap them on and say, I hope you make it. They normally, he's like, gotta go get a drink. They normally would, for example, practice the little nose boop exercise. Then they'd work that into, they maybe wear it for a few moments while they're playing or doing other fun things. Oh, smart man. Ready? We'll go back into our down. He's like, I'm so hungry. Oh my goodness, I almost got a smooch. Ready? Down. He's like, I guess so. So much work. Oh, what a brilliant boy. So, but if, for example, you are not as familiar with, again, those head collar practice moments, there are some great resources out there for those. But you don't just slap it on and then try to go for like a real walk. It's going to be too fast of a step. You really would want to just practice the head collars out and about. The head collar gets booped. The head collar, sometimes we put the nose through. Then we practice with the buckle behind his head. And then eventually, while he's wearing it, he would still be hooked up to his harness, and you'd be practicing things in and around the yard and home. He'd be maybe wearing it, but not attached to the leash yet, and you'd build up to that. So that way, if he's not really that used to it, slapping all of it on and just going for it is a great way to potentially ruin it or maybe scare him. And we don't want to do that. Good job, sir. So, but maybe we'll call it a day for some of these little skills with the muzzle and or head collar info. Give him a little break, and then we'll work a few more skills too with this handsome boy. But he's definitely, I think, going through a growth spurt, which is why you might have noticed he's a little slower at times, because the pain as they're growing sometimes will get them a little bit more fatigued. So, but we'll give him a little breather, give him a break from this exercise, and we'll move on to another one in just a moment.